Hello, hello, welcome back to Library Says. My name is Jamie. Today I am going to, finally, I know it's halfway into January, but I am here to do my top 10 reads of 2019. Okay, so I'm just going to do a countdown down to number 1 being my most favorite of the year. We're just gonna go ahead and get started with number 10, which is The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney. Now, this is a thriller. I don't read thrillers, or at least I would have said at the beginning of 2019 that I am not a thriller reader. I read Gone Girl, and I did like it. I've probably read a few other books some way down the line that would be considered thrillers, but for me, they stress me out and give me anxiety. At least that's what I would have said. I understand that a lot of people find them to be a lot of fun, and I want to be a thriller reader, but I never have been able to be until 2019. It was wild. I don't know how it happened, but this book was the first. So this book is about a woman who is looking for a new place to live in London that she can afford. London is very expensive, so she can't afford a lot. But then she sees an ad for a fully bedecked smart house, modern like mansion in London, and she can afford it. But she has to apply, and there's these rigorous qualifications she has to pass. And then she has to sign a contract saying that she won't clutter the place, she won't have people over, there's a whole list of things that she has to do that would seem unreasonable, except she's desperate for a place to live. So throughout the course of the book, she meets the owner/architect of this house and strikes up a relationship with him that progresses quickly. Meanwhile, we are getting flashes of the girl before, another woman who also lived in this house. And as the story goes on, their stories start to parallel in ways that gave me literal chills. And the whole time you're wondering, how far back was this other girl? How long has it been since she lived here? Her relationship with the owner-architect is creepily similar. There's some dialogue that down to the word becomes the same. And we know somebody died in the house in the past, but we don't know who it is. Was it this other girl? How did it happen? I was so entranced by this book, just completely enthralled. I read it in one day. I listened to the audiobook, which I highly recommend, and it was thrilling. And yes, a little stressful, but the whole time I just wanted to know how it was all going to play out. I know this doesn't have a super high rating on Goodreads, so maybe if you were a regular thriller reader, you wouldn't feel the same way I did. But I loved it, and I read several other thrillers in 2019 after reading this one, so for better or worse, it got me into thrillers. Number 9 on the list is Hope and Other Punchlines by Julie Buxbaum. So I have read Julie's other novels, and I gave them 5 stars and 4 stars, and then I gave this one 5 stars. I guess she's one of my favorite YA authors. Amazing. I went into this having forgotten what it was about. I put it on hold just because of who wrote it, not because of the summary. By the time my hold from the library came in, and I read it as an ebook, I had forgotten, and I didn't refresh my memory before I jumped in. So this book is about a girl named Abby who was in the World Trade Center daycare on 9/11. Her parents both worked in the building, but were off-site, so the 3 of them all survived. She survived because one of her daycare providers ran out of the building with her, and a photographer took a very famous photo of her. It was her birthday, and she's wearing a crown, holding a red balloon, and her daycare provider is holding her, running away with the towers crumbling in the background. I just got chills. And it's become sort of like an international phenomenon, this photo. So she is called Baby Hope because her middle name is Hope. She's famous. People come up to her in the streets telling her how much the photo means to them and how they think of her all the time. Being associated with most people's worst day of their entire life is not a good mental space for Abby. One summer, she's in high school, she takes a job at a summer camp for little kids, and nobody knows who she is, and she just wants to have a really wonderful, happy summer because she has started getting sick. There's something that I didn't know much about before reading this book called 9/11 syndrome, where survivors of 9/11 have gotten lung diseases and cancer and all sorts of things as a result of being in 9/11 when the building fell. And she believes she has 9/11 syndrome. But rather than telling her parents and rather than worrying everybody, she just wants to have one more really happy summer. Well, at the summer camp, she meets a boy who does recognize her. His name is Noah. He has secrets of his own surrounding 9/11. He knows someone who was in 9/11 who died, but he has a lot of questions about them. The main plot of the novel is the 2 of them working together to interview all of the other people that are in the famous Baby Hope photo to get answers. They both have reasons for doing this. So I don't think I would have read this book had I remembered what it was about. But I'm so glad I forgot because I loved it. It's another one that I read in a single day. I actually finished it on a work night, 3 o'clock in the morning, couldn't put it down, and I am crying, laying in bed, fetal position. It moved me. That's it. Go read it. Go read it right now. Number 8 on my list is The Last Romantics by Tara Conklin. This is another one that on paper I shouldn't have even picked up based on what I know about my reading taste. This book follows Fiona. She's 102 years old, I believe, at the start of the book, and it takes place in 2079. She's a famous writer, and she's being interviewed about her life and her writing. She starts by talking about when she was a small child. So she is one of 4 siblings, and her father dies when they're all very young, and her mother falls into a deep, deep depression. So from a very early age, the 4 siblings basically only have each other. And for their entire childhood, they raise themselves, they teach themselves, they have basically no adults in their life that care about them because their mother's incapable of taking care of them, and no one is catching on. Or the people who do catch on, they're not really able to help the kids. So you start there and you follow these siblings through their lives. You literally follow them their entire lives, all the way through adulthood, the consequences of the trauma they had as children. It was beautiful. And I'm not someone who would generally say I like sort of like domestic, generational, familial bonds fiction. I would say this is bordering on literary fiction, but it was wonderful. That's not very helpful. Along with these really well-developed relationships between the siblings and everyone else in their life, there's also some mystery. We have a lot of questions that we are introduced to that slowly reveal themselves. You know things from 2079, but you don't know how we got there. Or you have hints of things and it'll take decades for you to get the answers. It was... I was enraptured because I just wanted to know all the answers to all the questions, and I couldn't put it down. 5 stars. Number 7 on my list is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. I have never read any other John Boyne, including The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, for some reason. I have no excuse. I don't know why I picked this up. I mostly listened to the audiobook of it, and then I swapped to the ebook for the last maybe like 15 or 20% because I was on an airplane. This book follows a boy in Ireland who is adopted into a very unusual family. He has a lot of questions about where he came from, which we know, but he does not. You're seeing him try and find out who he is. And you follow him through his entire life, through moves to other countries, all of his relationships. He is gay. He was born in the 40s in Ireland, obviously a very Catholic country, and he's gay. And following his life was beautiful and heartbreaking, and I cried over and over and over again, but it was so moving and so well crafted. I feel like I know him. When the book ended, I felt devastated that I didn't have him in my real life. I felt so attached to the character. I will say there's a lot in this book, and it will break your heart and rip you to shreds. And if that's not what you're looking for, maybe steer clear. I would maybe get online and look at some trigger warnings and content warnings and just see if it's something you're up for. But I did end this book on an airplane over the ocean, flying to Australia last summer, crying next to a stranger, crying, full crying. Any book that can do that to me, 5 stars. Number 6 on my list, and another one that I wouldn't normally read, is Becoming by Michelle Obama. I don't read memoirs, like ever. It's bizarre because I actually did read 2 memoirs in 2019, but one of them was told in almost like short stories, so it felt pretty different. But I don't read memoirs ever, and especially anything to do with politics. However tangentially, but Michelle Obama is a very inspiring human being, and it was getting so much hype. So I thought, okay, let me give it a go. I'm hearing good things about the audiobook because she narrates it herself, and it was great. It still took me a while to get through because, again, it's just not my thing, but I was so inspired, and she's an incredible human being, and I definitely gained something having read the book. It was also just fascinating getting sort of a side perspective, but so up close and personal to the Obama administration and his election, and also their entire lives together leading up to the election, and hearing her talk about life after the presidency. It's just, I don't know, it's just fascinating. Also, 5 stars. 5 down, 5 to go, coffee break. Today's mug features I Ship It from, I think, Society 6. My best friend gave this to me for my birthday a couple years ago. She really kills it with the birthday presents. Number 5 on my list is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I was shocked at how much I liked this book. I don't know why. Okay, so this book came out 2014, many years ago. I owned a hardcover copy that I never read from years ago, and I unhauled it maybe 2 years ago. I heard that the fourth and final book of this series was coming out in early 2020. So this past summer, I thought, let's do this. I know there's 3 books. They're really long. They're going to be kind of a hefty read. I'll go ahead and start now so that I can get through all 3 in time for book 4. Man, I am so impressed. Her research and... Okay, let me rewind. Let me tell you what this book's about if you didn't already know because you've been living under a rock. The Diviners follows a group of teenagers in 1920s New York City who have abilities. And these abilities make them what they call diviners. And in the first book, this first novel, they are working to track down and stop a serial killing ghost. I would definitely say this first book could be classified as horror. It's a mystery, it's historical fiction that is just stunningly researched and written. I believed every moment of 1920s New York in this book. But it also was scary. I had to read it in chunks initially because it was spooky, but then eventually I just gave in to the impulse to just read it, and I knocked it right out despite how long it is. I actually finished this on a trip as well and had to tell everybody that I was traveling with, like, oh my god, the Diviners! And everyone was like, yeah, I know, like, everybody's read that book. But of course, I gave it 5 stars, and I did immediately jump into the second book in the series, which I didn't like as much. It'll actually make an appearance in my next video. Stay tuned. As I'm filming, I'm realizing how often I'm saying, this isn't a book I would normally read. Maybe I should read more outside of what I think I should read, because I'm enjoying it. That is to say, book 4 on this list is Notes for My Captivity by Kathy Parks, another book that I never would have read except that I did for some reason, and I loved it. Loved it. Told everybody about it. I feel like this is hugely underrated. I don't know anybody who's read it. It's actually got a hint of magical realism / fabulism, which is a genre that I have told people actively have said, I don't like that genre. Well, this book is about a girl whose stepdad is an academic. He studies a very specific thing. He studies a family in Russia that ran away from Moscow when they were being persecuted for having magical powers. Which maybe they do, maybe they don't. Most people think not. But they basically ran away from Moscow into the Siberian wilderness. And most people assume that they died. Her stepdad believes that they are still alive and they kill people who get too close, and they're sort of these like wild people in the woods. Our main character, Adrian, wants to be a reporter when she grows up. And even though she does not like her stepdad and does not want to spend time with her stepdad, she begs him to let her come along on this trip. She thinks he is out of his mind, and this family doesn't really exist, but she will basically go along on this trip, document the whole thing, and basically disprove him, and in the process boost her potential journalism career. Instead, horrible things happen, and she ends up alone in the wilderness and meets the family, of course, and gets taken in by them, first as a captive. And the story is basically character growth. So go in knowing Adrian is extremely unlikable to begin with. She is selfish and self-absorbed and basically a huge brat, but the character growth that you see from Adrian across the course of this novel, so good. There's a romance that I thought it's very light, but beautifully done. The family dynamic, killer. And then there's that sprinkling, just a teeny tiny sprinkling of magical realism that was perfect, amazing, incredible. Just throw out random adjectives. Spectacular. Go read this book, please. Nobody has read this book. Nobody has heard of this book. Go read it. Go right now. I'll wait. Number 3 on this list set the tone for my reading year. So my best friend and I decided to buddy read The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Neither of us had read it. We decided to give it a go, and we ended up reading a whole bunch of dark academia, a bunch of literary fiction, a bunch of things that normally we wouldn't read. So this was a great start to the year. This was way back, like full on a year ago now from when I'm recording this video. If you haven't read The Secret History and you don't know what it's about, it is about a bunch of extraordinarily pretentious classics students at a private liberal arts school in New England. They study Latin and other dead languages, and murder happens. It's great. I don't think I can say anything that hasn't already been said about The Secret History. Go read it. Number 2, we are getting down to the wire here. Number 2 on this list is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Honestly, number 1 and number 2 on this list, it was kind of a toss-up. It could have gone either way. I loved this book so much. Listen to the audiobook, please. There's no way it would have been as good if I physically read it with my eyeballs. Daisy Jones and the Six is about a fictional very famous band from the 70s, think Fleetwood Mac, who released a hit album called Aurora, went on tour, and then broke up, and nobody knows what the story is there. And we follow these characters from before they became a band all the way through to after the breakup, and you find out all of the dynamics of the members of the band. And there's really not a plot. Don't go in looking for plot and for action. Go in for stellar character development and relationship building. Just so good. And the best part of this whole thing, it's told in interviews. So you are getting the different perspectives from each of the characters in the band. So a lot of the stories you're hearing directly contradict each other, which was fascinating. And you're slowly building sort of like a patchwork quilt of story where you're thinking, maybe down the middle is the actual truth of what happened. The audiobook is narrated so well. Directed so well. I think there should be an award for this. Each character has their own narrator, so by the end, I felt like I knew each individual character. Their voice was the character. Amazing. Go read it. Go listen to it on audio. Just so you know, because I can't listen to Aurora, I can't listen to Daisy Jones and the Six, sadly, tragically, I have now purchased all of Fleetwood Mac's albums, and I've been listening to them on repeat because it's the closest I can get to Daisy Jones. And number 1 on this list is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is another one. Where was I? Where have I been? I don't know. Amazing. So this book is literary apocalyptic fiction. Don't you want to read it? A virus wipes out 99% of humanity, and we follow several different timelines following different characters. We follow several characters before the virus ever happens. We follow a character the night of the virus really hitting and the start of the epidemic, and we follow him through the first couple of years. And then we follow a character 20 years after humanity has been wiped out, who's a member of a traveling theater troupe that goes from settlement to settlement and performs Shakespeare. The best part of this whole thing is that every character is connected, but you don't know how, and you get these little snippets, and you're like, so good. I just imagined Emily St. John Mandel sitting in the middle of a room with photos and timelines, like the yarn tacked up on every wall so she can keep straight all of the timelines and all of the different plot points and how everybody's connected and related, sitting in the middle of like her lair with the walls covered in stuff. It must be. I don't know how else she could have written this novel and pulled it off the way she did. 5 stars. Amazing. Go read it right now. Okay. That is my top 10 favorite books I read in 2019. It was hard to pick. I had a pretty decent reading year. What are your favorites of 2019? Tell me in the comments down below, and maybe I'll have to check it out for 2020. Maybe it'll be in my next video just like this. My links are down below for Goodreads and for Twitter. Hit me up over there. I'm active in both places, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.